don't care. Dog. I want people to notice me when I'm in the town. Yo, this big brown guy he shouldn't be here.
I care that you're here.
I love that attention.
I love it. I want to give some attention to this show. This is Acting Good. Paul Rabliauskas, welcome to Toronto.
Man, thanks for having me.
My favorite thing about the show, because I'm not very versed on First Nations cultures.
Okay.
And, we learn about each other through comedy.
Yeah.
So the jokes and everything, while I'm learning the jokes, I'm like, okay, these are the little nuances. Like, you walked in, I'm like, bro, you on Indian time. He's like, what?
I wasn't ready for somebody at Bell to be dropping Indian time on me.
You know
I
what?
love it.
Well, that's what we say in my community.
Yeah,
in Caribbean community, if you're late, be like, oh, you on Jamaican time.
Yeah, Jamaican time.
I completely get it.
Man, I think it's white people that gave us that term Indian time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of course we don't want to.
Well, they're on time too much. They need to slow down.
The first meeting we had with white people, we was early to that one. We was early. And now we're late. Now we're late because we don't trust none of them.
Well, that's the one for the check. You got to be on time for the check meeting, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a great story. For those who don't know, you are a guy that went to the big city, Winnipeg.
The big city.
Winnipeg. That sounds weird saying in Toronto.
New York City. Yeah.
I know, right? I'm in the small city. No.
And then you're in Toronto now.
Well, listen, you come home to town, to Manitoba. And everybody is excited or somewhat angsty to see you because maybe you've changed and maybe things are different for you now.
I went to the city and I lied about how good things were in the city. I lied about how many pools I was swimming in. I was lying about my job. And that's not the first time. This is based on in reality where my family lived in the reserve my whole life. And I stayed in the city because of comedy and because of school.
Okay.
And there was a lot of times I had to go back home because, I wasn't making rent. My girlfriend kicked me out. So I was like, I'm coming back home with my legs, my tail between my legs. And I'm like, I'm going to help the mom. I got to help mom and dad.
Yeah.
They're getting old. I'm not looking. They're looking after me every time I go back.
But it's funny because when you come back to the hood, everyone's looking at you different. Like, man, boy done changed. He got rich and switched.
He's acting good now.
He's acting good. But you're acting, but you're trying to fit in because you're like, guys, I'm still the same guy.
Yeah. And they're not having it though. They're not buying it at all. And it's so funny because the acting good, there's levels to acting good. It could be me walking around with a new jacket on, and then the whole town is like, "Yo, man, he's acting good." He got so the whole thing about acting good is the community and the reserve itself, because it's so isolated and humble. You're gonna get humbled every single time you act good, and there's a lesson I think in that, and you'll see that in the seasons too.
Okay, I love it. Very fun, very fun. Tell me, I'm still learning about the many cultures of the First Nations.
Yeah.
I read that you do a podcast with your mother.
My mom, yeah.
And she's teaching you the language.
Anishinaabe Mowen is the language.
Anishinaabe Mowen.
Good job. That's actually pretty dope. Yeah.
Okay. How is that journey for you?
That was amazing. We did that during COVID, and my parents were like, they were my only friends I had during COVID because I was up in the reserve. I wasn't out doing comedy, and me and my mom, she'd always try to teach me the language, right? But I was a lazy kid. I was a slow learner, and it just so happened we had the time and we had the equipment, so it was like, I was like, Mom, let's sit down and you just teach me the language, and we did about. I think we did 10 episodes. They're on all the places where you can get your podcast and stuff. And it was amazing. We ended up having a big base of people that were listening to our podcast and learning the language at the same time. So for me, I think that was really cool, especially because I got to do it with my mom. If you watch the show, I have a very unhealthy relationship with my mom. Like I'm a mama's boy and then some on this episode. Like, it gets creepy actually. It gets creepy how close I am with my mama. And some of that is and that's true in real life. Like, my mom has always been there for me, and she's a big part of the show too.
Because the language is based on nothing to do with English or anything Europe, it probably sounds unrecognizable to us. Like, can you teach us a word or two?
It's like right now it's raining outside, so you say Kimawen Aguchin. Kimawen means it's raining.
Kimawen.
Aguchin is outside.
Aguchin.
Kimawen Aguchin.
Kimawen Aguchin.
Yeah, it sounds nothing like the English, but it's so weird. Like, the word for vehicle is autopen. So that has the word auto in it still. So it's I don't know if that happened by accident or if that was a.
I'm assuming that your folks didn't invent vehicles, right? So they just called it.
We had horses. We had horses.
This is what I'm saying. So okay, that's a very cool journey.
Yeah, man.
I mean, right now with all the speak about race and culture in our country, there is a a curiosity among people about what's going on in your community.
Yeah.
So
And
I welcome the show.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you mentioned earlier how like comedy is sort of like this tool that we use to sort of teach people. I've learned that in stand-up comedy where I'm using my comedy and I'm talking about, stuff. I'm talking about residential school and talking about sort of dark stuff, but through comedy.
Yes.
And now people come up to me and be like, yo, I didn't know that your people were going through this. And, even though they're laughing at the same time, they're still learning. And I think with the show now, we get to do that, and the audience is a lot bigger now. So, and we're not a preachy show. This is not a show where it's, natives are mad at this and that. It really is a show about a family that just happens to live on the reserve. And some of the things that the Canadian audiences are going to learn are just things that just happen to be there.
I got to reiterate that. I've watched, an episode. It's not preachy at all.
Not at all.
And what I love is the fact we go into a weird space for some, but with a comedy kind of feeling, and then we feel welcome. We're like, okay, I can laugh along.
Yeah, we have we're not too political, but we do have some political stuff. Like I have a girlfriend, and she has this other boyfriend, and his name is Stephen Harper, and we all hate Stephen Harper, bro. And so of course you do. And Stephen Harper's such he's a good guy on the show. He's he loves my character, but I love telling Stephen Harper to get lost. Right. A lot of the characters do not like Stephen Harper.
That's
on the show.
your chance to tell out the Prime Minister. Very, very funny.
Legally, he's not based on legally.
Oh yeah, no. Stephen Harper.
Stephen Harper. It's spelled different. The
other guy.
It's not based technically, but I mean, you watch the show, you're gonna laugh at that joke. So there are little political things that we like to fit in there, but really, I think people are gonna learn more than anything. It's like, yo, these First Nations families are just like us. They're just like, I think people, when they see the trailer, they expect something. They're gonna I've seen these shows before, but I think our comedy it's so silly. Yeah. It's so weird. It's gonna take you into a completely different place.
It's mad silly. It's just like every second is like, what are they saying? Like, what are they talking about? It's very silly.
The lingo. There's an episode where my jeans are too tight and I can't get on this girl's porch for dinner. Like she invited me for dinner, but the whole episode I'm trying to get on this porch, but my jeans are too tight. You know what I mean? So there's we take you into a different place, I think, with our comedy in the series.
Nah, man. First line of the show, you guys are talking about each other's noses. Like, what did you just say about his nose?
I can't reiterate what we said.
Like what he said about the word. I was like, did he just say that about his nose?
And I love that. That's specifically something that me and my cousin Chico up north, that's what he calls me. And sort of we call each other. And I don't know where it came from, but it's just that came from a real place. So.
Okay. I'm gonna call my co-host on the radio that tomorrow morning live on the radio.
You're going to get censored. They're going to have to censor
that. See how she reacts to that. But listen, you guys got to check this out. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it already. And it's acting good. 10:30 CTV comedy. Paul Rabliauskas, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
Funny. Get on it.